In the past few years, I've set up several creative enterprises, which have all failed. The first one was a digital print business focusing on Bible verses. The second was a hand-painted earrings business. Despite the fact that they both failed, I wanted to try again. So what's the new idea? So I wanted to combine my interest in indoor plants with crafting. So initially I was filming footage on my indoor plants collection, but then I also started making pots for them out of air dry clay. There's a high chance that my previous enterprises didn't work out simply because the designs were not good enough. So this time I thought I'll give myself more options. I would talk about how I care for my plants, how I grow my collection, and also how crafting can feed into it with all the pot making and just things like that in general. But I was actually receiving a lot of engagement. Yeah, I was receiving a lot of engagement for the clay projects, and that was really encouraging. I was getting a lot of positive comments, people were really liking what I was doing. So I decided to focus more on the crafting side. I went on to explore cold porcelain clay, and I used it to make cute little things like these. And I did get a lot of interest in the clay pots, but they're not at a stage where I'll be happy to sell them, simply because I don't know how durable they are. But I do want to start a clay business. So I've decided that I want to create my own little characters, like I have seen with so many creatives and so many clay artists online, and I just want to see if I can make it work as well. So I decided to film the whole process in this vlog series, starting from designing the products to working out how to make the product, listing it, launching it, and seeing if I make any sale at all. Yeah, whether it works out or not, I just wanted to document the whole process and just share that with you. The focus will be on cold porcelain clay, so if you are interested in crafting, stick around. I'll show you all my methods, mistakes, and just what to do and what not to do with the clay.
For my first character, I'm developing one of the pot designs I made previously. The tortoise is not only cute, but it's a good reminder that it's okay to go at your own pace. I haven't felt like I've had much success in my enterprises so far, but I haven't stopped. I might just be too optimistic here, but I do believe that my persistence will pay off. I'm also adding some cute accessories to him, just as a reminder that it's good to take breaks, have a snack, and allow yourself some time to breathe. This is homemade cold porcelain clay. If you haven't tried it before, it's quite a game changer. It's really easy to make, and I'll show you how I did it later in the video. For now, I'm using some that I made a few weeks ago. Most of the clay I've already coloured with acrylic paint. The trickiest part to making this clay is getting the consistency right. The ideal consistency is that it should form a teardrop when pulled apart. The green clay was a bit overcooked, so it isn't as smooth as the white one. But since I'm drafting my designs at the moment, I'll mix the two and use it for now. When the clay is overcooked, there's a high chance of it cracking as you sculpt with it. I don't want to waste the clay though, so I'll just see what happens. So I left these guys overnight to dry, and I expected them to crack, but I really didn't expect it to be so bad. So I think I'm just going to have to scrap all my old batch of clay, and yeah, I just used a new one. Okay, so let's compare the first batch of turtles with the second batch of turtles. So the first batch used the older clay, which was cooked for longer in the microwave, and so it was a bit firmer and maybe a bit more dry as well, which is probably why it's quite cracked all over these areas. And of course, when it was drying, it did crack majorly on these sides as well. The newer batch of clay, I didn't microwave it as long, so it's a lot softer, which makes it a bit tricky to work with, but it's also a lot more smooth. So you can see it looks a lot more, yeah, just looks a lot better around these areas. But it has cracked a lot as well. But I think that's to do with how I've attached the head to the body, in that it's not drying as evenly as it should do. So it's kind of like pulling away from itself. So yeah, I'm going to try another method today and see how it goes. A quick tip for colour mixing with clay is that you really do just need to experiment. So I treat it as if I'm mixing paint really. So I'm going to test out all the different blues with the different yellows. And then the idea is that you need to make sure to keep little samples, and then stick them in a sketchbook so you remember how you mixed your colours. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So cerulean and the lemon yellow has created quite a bright green. So I'm going to take a little bit of this, just pull it to one side. And then the cerulean and the yellow ochre has created quite a kind of swampy kind of green. But we'll take some of that and pull it aside as well. So I'm just going to squish these into tiny little discs. And then once they're dried, I'm going to stick it in a sketchbook and just do like a colour swatching page, or like a colour sampling page. And then this way you have something to refer to when you want to mix the same colour again. A better tip would be to not squish it directly onto your table, just because it's quite hard to pick up afterwards. So yeah, let's do this again. Grab like a plastic sheet instead. So this is just like some A4 plastic wallet, and we'll squish it onto this. So then you can move it away, let it dry, and it should peel off really easily afterwards.
They've all cracked again, but I think I know why this is happening now. I think I finally know why this is happening now.
The answer to this problem that I keep having is really straightforward. I think the reason it's cracking so much is simply because it dries quicker on the top than it does on the bottom. Because if you touch the top, it's not like solid, but it's quite hard and you can't really scratch it. Whereas on the bottom, it's still really soft. It's almost like fresh clay. So I think all I need to do is just flip it over every few hours to let it dry properly. But another issue is that the head just never seems to dry really nice. Around the edge, it's always quite crusty and creased. So new plan is to make everything separately and just let it dry, and then I'll glue it on afterwards. Okay, so yeah, we'll see if this works this time. I attempted to make some cake yesterday, so we've got a standard Victoria sponge, and then the idea was to add some cream and some fresh strawberries on it as well. See, the colour of the cake isn't quite right, but even if it was, I don't think the cake itself is that cute. I'm thinking I should try something else, like maybe a Swiss roll or a cupcake, but a cupcake might be a bit tricky to make. I also have a lot of clouded thoughts in my head right now, So I'm going to attempt to make a Swiss roll, and I'll share those thoughts with you. The start of the project is always quite tricky because I feel like I have all these big ideas and I have this like kind of vision of how I want it to look in the end. But at the moment I'm so far from that. And right now I'm not even sure if I have a product. So again, I'm really fortunate in that I have the opportunity to do something like this because I know a lot of people don't. And in a way that's my main driving force at this time. In that I would regret not trying something like this. I think today in particular, I do feel a lot more apprehensive about all of this. And I think it's mainly just because I don't know what's going to happen. There's too much unknown, and I mean, I've attempted doing something like this before and it's not worked out. So it's a lot of work, and then you don't feel like you have anything to show for yourself. And it always feels a bit embarrassing to tell people like what you're doing, what you're trying to build, and then like a few months down the line you just tell them like, oh yeah, it hasn't really worked out, no one bought anything. And that's okay, like you do have to anticipate that when you start a business. I sound really negative right now, but I do want this to work. And I do see it working as well. I'm trying to read more scripture and just reminding myself of, you know, what I believe in. And all the reasons why I should be bold about this. And not be so worried about failing and things like that. And I do know I do know that God wants success for you. I do know that He wants success for me. Oh, I'm not sure this is gonna roll. Ayo. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, I don't think that's really worked. I had a look on Pinterest, and I think the trick is to have the cream part smaller than the cake part, as you would when you make a Swiss roll. So we'll try again. Oh. I think I need to do a skinnier roll. So I tried turning them over every few hours, and that really didn't work. So I think they're just drying too quick. You see, this didn't happen before, so when I made some figures, when I first started using cold porcelain clay, I didn't really have a problem. Well, I had a bit of a problem with cracking, but it's never been this bad. So I think it's because my air is too dry. So I recently got a dehumidifier, so everything dries really quick now in the house. So the new plan of action is to put everything in a little box to dry. And it will take way longer to dry, but I think it might prevent cracking, so we'll try that instead. So they've been in the box for about 4 or 5 days, and so far they haven't cracked, but they're also drying incredibly slow. So now, yeah, I don't feel like these will dry anytime soon, so let's try leaving just a little gap on the side to see if that helps, and hopefully they won't crack either. We'll move on now to how to make cold porcelain clay. So if you look online, you'll find that there's a lot of different recipes, but they're all just slight variations of each other. So essentially you just need some corn flour or cornstarch, some PVA glue, a bit of acid, so that could be lemon juice or vinegar, and that just stops the clay from going mouldy. And then you need some oil as well. So you can use coconut oil, baby oil, or olive oil, just to name a few. So far I've been using this recipe from Sugar Cafe Charms. It's been really good to use so far, but I've been wanting to try out another recipe. This recipe is from the DM's Craft, and it is really similar, but it just uses half the amount of oil and half the amount of vinegar. I start by measuring out a cup of corn flour first and placing that aside in a small bowl. Now mix the PVA, vinegar, oil and paint in a microwavable bowl. It's best to mix all the wet ingredients first before you add the flour. This way it will combine more easily and you'll get a much smoother mixture. Once the liquids are well mixed together, add the flour and stir it till it's nice and smooth. Small lumps are okay. Now the trickiest part is knowing how long to microwave it for. I found that when it's overcooked, even slightly, the clay doesn't keep as well and cracks more easily when you sculpt with it, so this time I'm going to be really cautious. I microwaved it for 30 seconds, then mixed it well. I did it for another 30 seconds and mixed it again. Now I decided to do 4 lots of 15 seconds intervals and mixed it in between. This is how it looked at this point. It's thickening up really slowly and still too runny. From start to finish, this is how many times I put it in the microwave for. Eventually it gets to this consistency. This took a lot longer than my previous attempts, so I'll try different timings next time. You know it's good when it's sticky on your fingers but not on your palm. Let it cool a little because it's really hot at this point. You can start kneading when it feels more comfortable for you. This isn't as cooked as what I would typically do. It's usually more doughy when I take it out of the microwave and way less sticky. But in the DM's Craft video, his mixture was really sticky like this, and it did form a dough eventually. I kept adding a bit of corn flour as I was kneading it to reduce the stickiness. After about 10 minutes, it started to look like this. And when you do the teardrop test, it makes a nice point, but I like it to be a bit firmer. So I added more flour and kept kneading for another 5 minutes or so, and this is how it looks. I'm really happy with this consistency, so I'll stop here. To store it, rub some oil on it to prevent drying, then put in a Ziploc bag to keep the air out. You should then rest the clay for at least 24 hours before using it, as it makes the texture a lot better. I decided to try the same recipe again, but this time I microwaved it for longer intervals. Here's what I did. And it overcooked. The texture is a lot more firm than before. I've kneaded it for a while now, but when I try to pull a teardrop, you can see that the texture isn't as smooth and it's not really forming a nice point. I kept kneading and kneading it to try and make it smoother. The clay is a lot less sticky than before, but it's also not as smooth or soft. In total, I've kneaded this for over 20 minutes and this is how it looks. The peak isn't as smooth, but the texture should improve after I've rested the clay. Out of curiosity, I decided to try Contractor's PVA as well, since I saw it on Amazon. I expected it to be thicker than craft PVA, but it was really watery. It was still runny after I mixed the flour in, and the texture was really odd as it was cooking in the microwave. I microwaved it for the following times and it thickened really quick. It already formed the dough in the microwave. The texture of this was really soft and it didn't feel stretchy like the previous recipe did. It does form a nice peak though, so we'll rest it and see what happens. A tip for cleaning up. If you let the glue dry, you can easily wipe the flour and glue off the bowl later. Any clay residue on the table will just come off if you scrub it with warm water. If you use a silicone spatula like me, let the mixture dry and it'll peel off nicely afterwards. It's been 5 days now since I've made this clay, so let's have a look. This is the first batch of clay that we made. So this was the one that I microwaved incredibly slowly in the microwave. And then it was incredibly sticky and I was trying to work with it. It's a lot more firm than I expected. But it's actually really nice. When I see other people do it, I feel like they just take it out the batch and they pull it and it's a nice peak, but I don't seem to get that with mine. If I do knead it a little bit, then I find that it does make a really nice peak. Yeah, so this one's really nice. I was expecting it to be way too soft to work with, but it's actually firm and soft at the same time. And really smooth as well. It's also not sticky at all, which is really great because previous batches that I've made, they have been a bit sticky. But I do think it's because I put a bit too much white acrylic paint into it. This time I only put 1 tablespoon of white acrylic paint. This one is the exact same recipe, but I microwaved it for different times. So I microwaved it for longer intervals than the previous batch. So effectively it had less time in the microwave, but each session was a bit longer. As I was kneading it, I was worried that it might be a bit too brittle. So, like, this doesn't feel as soft as the other clay, but it's still moldable. And again, it doesn't form nice peaks straight away, but if I just knead it a little bit, it might be okay. Yeah, this batch is also really good, but I would say that it's not as good as the previous one. I feel like it's not as smooth, but I think I have to test it out and sculpt with it. And if this doesn't crack, then it's okay. But yeah, the peak just isn't as nice as the previous one. For the final one, I used the same recipe, but I used contractor's PVA instead of craft PVA. I was just quite curious about it because I saw it on Amazon quite a few times. Yeah, it's incredibly brittle. I don't know why, they're both called PVA, but it really doesn't work the same way. It's really crumbly. It also felt this way when I was kneading it. I just felt like there wasn't much of a stretch to it. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can use this for anything. Yeah, it's also not very clean to work with as well because it's leaving a lot of trace on my fingers. It's just leaving like a skin of like glue, like crumbs on it.
I haven't been filming much recently, but I've been working on some new character designs, and some I really like and some I'm just gonna scrap. The cookie cat is the latest creation, which I'm really happy with, but I'm gonna do some more variations and just see what you think about it.
really put off filming the outro for this video because I still feel quite uncomfortable and just really awkward talking to the camera. So it's actually been about 3 months since the last clip on this video, and I've just continued sculpting and developing my ideas, which you will see in the next vlog, so I won't go into that too much. But looking back on this vlog, I forgot that I had so many days where I was just feeling quite down and unsure of myself, but I'm just really glad that I continued and persevered, because I am in a much better place with my shop now. I'm really happy with where things are going actually. It's just everything's taking so much longer than you expect, which is quite natural. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for just being here for me, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.